Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he checked the ship's life support systems one more time. Everything had to be perfect. Today was the day humanity would meet aliens for the first time, and he was responsible for making sure the ship's systems worked properly. The year was 2187, and Jake was an engineer aboard the Horizon's Edge, a diplomatic vessel floating in deep space. He was 28 years old and had never imagined he would be part of something this important. For weeks, Earth's governments had been preparing for this moment. The Velkari Empire had sent a message saying they wanted to meet humanity peacefully. "Morrison, are we ready?" Captain Lisa Rodriguez walked into the engineering bay. She was a stern woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Yes, Captain." "All systems are running at full capacity," Jake replied, closing the panel he had been working on. "Good. They'll be here in 30 minutes. Get cleaned up and report to the docking bay. Ambassador Harper wants all key personnel there for the arrival." Jake nodded and headed to his quarters. He changed into his formal uniform, the dark blue one with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. His hands were shaking slightly. Meeting aliens. Real aliens. It felt like something from the old movies his grandfather used to show him. The docking bay was crowded with diplomats, scientists, and security personnel. Ambassador Kyle Harper stood at the front, a tall man with gray hair and a calm expression. He had been chosen to lead humanity's first diplomatic contact because of his decades of experience in international negotiations. "Remember," Harper said to everyone gathered, "we know very little about the Velkari except that they've been watching us for years. Be respectful, be cautious, and let me do the talking." Jake stood near the back with the other technical staff. His heart pounded in his chest as the airlock began to cycle. Red lights flashed, then turned green. The door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The aliens entered slowly, gracefully. Jake's breath caught in his throat. They were humanoid in shape, but clearly not human. Their skin had a faint bluish tint that seemed to shimmer under the lights. They were tall, most of them over 6 feet, with elegant features and large eyes that held an unusual depth. They wore flowing robes that looked like they were made from liquid metal. But it was the one in the center who caught Jake's attention completely. She was slightly shorter than the others, with delicate features and eyes that sparkled with curiosity. Her robes were more elaborate, colored in deep purples and silvers. She moved with a grace that made everyone else seem clumsy. "I am Ambassador Kyle Harper, representing Earth and humanity," Harper said, stepping forward. "We welcome you in peace." One of the taller aliens, a male with stern features, spoke in perfect English. "I am Commander Vexnar. We represent the Velkari Empire. This is Princess Zarathil, daughter of Emperor Thonzar." The princess stepped forward and studied the humans carefully. Her gaze swept across the crowd and stopped on Jake for just a moment. Their eyes met, and Jake felt something strange flutter in his chest. Then she looked away, and the moment passed. The formal introductions continued for another hour. Jake barely paid attention. He kept glancing at the princess, who seemed to be examining everything around her with intense interest. She occasionally leaned toward Commander Vexnar and whispered questions, which he answered quietly. Finally, the aliens were escorted to their guest quarters. Jake returned to his duties, but he couldn't stop thinking about those eyes. He shook his head, trying to focus. There was work to do. 2 days passed with formal meetings between the diplomats. Jake saw the aliens only from a distance as they moved through the ship. He was busy maintaining the systems and making sure everything ran smoothly with the additional life support requirements for their guests. On the 3rd day, disaster struck. Jake was in the main engineering room when alarms began blaring. One of the primary oxygen recyclers had failed, and it was in the section where the Velkari delegation was staying. "I need to fix it manually," Jake told his supervisor. "The automated systems aren't responding." He grabbed his tools and ran through the corridors. The problem was in a maintenance tunnel near the guest quarters. Jake crawled into the tight space and began working quickly. The recycler had a burned-out circuit board. He pulled out his spare parts and started replacing components. "What are you doing?" a voice asked in accented English. Jake jumped, hitting his head on a pipe. He looked down through the access grate and saw Princess Zarathil standing below, looking up at him with curious eyes. "Fixing your air supply, Your Highness," Jake said, rubbing his head. "There was a malfunction. It's almost done." "May I watch?" she asked. Sure. It's not very interesting, though." "I disagree," she said softly. "You work differently than our engineers. You seem to feel what is wrong rather than follow a diagnostic protocol." Jake smiled slightly as he connected the last wire. "My grandfather always said machines talk to you if you listen. It's not very scientific, but it works." The system hummed back to life. Jake ran a quick test and nodded in satisfaction. He climbed down from the maintenance tunnel, his uniform covered in grease and dust. Standing next to the princess, he suddenly felt very aware of how messy he looked. "Thank you," Zara said. "You potentially saved our lives." "Just doing my job, ma'am." "You are Jake Morrison, yes?" "I heard your name mentioned by the captain." "That's right." Jake was surprised she knew who he was. Zara tilted her head, studying him in a way that made him nervous. "I have many questions about humans. Your species is fascinating. Would you be willing to answer them?" "I'm just an engineer, Your Highness. Maybe one of the diplomats would be better." "Diplomats give careful answers," Zara said. "I want honest ones. I will request you as my personal liaison." Before Jake could respond, she turned and walked away, her robes flowing behind her like water. Jake stood there, confused and oddly excited. What had just happened? That evening, Captain Rodriguez called him to her office. "Morrison, the princess has requested you specifically to help her understand human culture and technology. Ambassador Harper has agreed. Starting tomorrow, you'll spend 2 hours each day with her. Consider it a diplomatic assignment." Jake's heart started beating faster. 2 hours each day with an alien princess. He had no idea what he was supposed to say or do, but he knew one thing for certain. His life had just become much more complicated. Jake stood outside the princess's quarters, nervous and unsure of what to expect. He had spent the previous evening reading everything he could find about Velkari culture, which wasn't much. The aliens had been secretive, sharing only basic information before their arrival. The door opened before he could knock. Princess Zarathil stood there wearing simpler robes than before, though they still shimmered with that liquid metal quality. She smiled slightly when she saw him. "Please, come in," she said. Jake stepped into a room that had been transformed. The standard guest quarters now held strange devices that glowed softly, and the air smelled like something sweet he couldn't identify. Zara gestured to a chair that looked more comfortable than anything on the ship. "Thank you for agreeing to this," she said, sitting across from him. "I hope I did not cause trouble for you." "No trouble at all, Your Highness," Jake replied, sitting carefully. "Please just call me Zara. If we are to talk honestly, titles seem unnecessary." Jake relaxed a little. "All right, Zara. What would you like to know?" She leaned forward, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Everything. But let us start with something that confuses me greatly. I have been reading your literature and watching your entertainment programs. You have this concept called dating. Explain it to me." Jake blinked in surprise. Of all the things she could have asked about, he hadn't expected that. "Dating? Well, it's how humans get to know each other romantically. Two people spend time together, talk, share experiences, and see if they're compatible." "But why?" Zara asked. "Do your families not arrange suitable matches based on genetic compatibility and social benefit?" "No, we stopped doing that a long time ago. Now people choose their own partners based on, well, On feelings. On love. Zara stared at him like he had said something impossible. You choose based on emotion, not logic? Love isn't really logical, Jake said with a small smile. It's about connecting with someone, feeling happy when they're around, wanting to be with them. This is very strange to me, Zara said quietly. In Velkari society, marriages are arranged for the good of families and empire. Emotion is considered unreliable. We are taught to suppress such things from childhood. Don't you ever feel anything? Happiness? Sadness? We do, but faintly, and we control it. Zara looked down at her hands. I am expected to marry Prince Dralmor of the Kethril Empire soon. It will unite our peoples and bring peace. I met him once. He is acceptable. Something in Jake's chest tightened uncomfortably. Just acceptable? Not someone you care about? Care about? Zara looked back up at him. I do not understand what you mean. Over the next 2 weeks, Jake's meetings with Zara became the highlight of his day. He taught her about human music, playing her everything from classical symphonies to modern pop songs. She listened with fascination, sometimes closing her eyes and swaying slightly to the rhythms. It creates feelings inside me, she said after listening to a particularly emotional piano piece. Is that normal? Very normal, Jake said. That's the whole point of music. He showed her human art, explained human history, and told her stories about his own life. She asked endless questions, absorbing everything like a sponge. In return, she began to share things about her own culture. Velkari poetry was mathematical, she explained, based on precise patterns and logical structures. Their music was the same, created by algorithms rather than emotion. She recited one of their poems for him, and while he didn't understand the language, he could hear the complex patterns in her voice. That's beautiful, he said honestly. Different from ours, but beautiful. Zara smiled, and Jake realized it was the first real smile he had seen from her. It transformed her face, making her seem younger and more alive. The delegations eventually moved to a neutral location, a research station orbiting a small moon called Kepler-7. The negotiations were going well, with both sides eager to establish trade and cultural exchange. Jake and Zara continued their daily meetings, now in a small observation room with a view of the stars. One evening, Jake brought something special. I wanted to show you one of my favorite human traditions, he said, dimming the lights until they could see the stars clearly through the large window. Stargazing, Zara said. We do this as well, but for scientific purposes. Not for us. Well, some people do it scientifically. But most of us just do it because it's beautiful, and we tell stories about the stars. Jake pointed to different constellations, explaining the ancient myths behind them. Stories of heroes and monsters, love and tragedy, adventure and sacrifice. Zara listened intently, standing close beside him. Humans find meaning in everything, she said softly, even in random patterns of light. Maybe the meaning isn't really there, Jake admitted. Maybe we just create it, but that doesn't make it less important to us. I am beginning to understand, Zara said. She was quiet for a moment, then asked, Jake, what does it feel like to be in love? The question caught him off guard. He thought carefully before answering. It's like someone turns on a light inside you. Everything seems brighter when they're around. You think about them when they're gone. You want them to be happy, even if it means sacrificing your own happiness. That sounds painful, Zara said. Sometimes it is. But it's also the best feeling in the world. Zara turned to look at him, her face illuminated by starlight. I think I am feeling something I should not feel, she whispered. When I am with you, there is a sensation in my chest. Warm, pleasant. When you are not here, I want you to return. Is this what you described? Jake's heart started racing. He opened his mouth to respond, but alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. "Emergency in Sector 7, a voice announced over the intercom. "Meteor damage, multiple breaches, personnel trapped." Jake and Zara looked at each other, then ran toward the emergency. They found chaos in the affected sector. A meteor had punched through the outer hull, and 3 scientists were trapped behind a sealed door. The automatic systems had locked them in to prevent decompression of the rest of the station. "The override isn't working," a technician shouted. "The system's fried." Jake pushed forward. "I can bypass it manually, but I need someone to monitor the pressure differentials." "I can do that," Zara said immediately. "Show me what to watch." They worked together, Jake's hands flying over the manual controls, while Zara read out numbers from a nearby console. She learned quickly, adapting to the human systems with impressive speed. Her logical mind and his intuitive problem-solving complemented each other perfectly. "Now!" Jake shouted. He pulled a lever, and the door opened just enough for the trapped personnel to squeeze through before it sealed again. Everyone in the area started clapping, but Jake barely noticed. He was looking at Zara, who was looking back at him with something new in her eyes. Something warm and alive, and very much like what he was feeling. Commander Vexnar appeared, stern and disapproving. "Princess, we must speak privately. Now." Zara followed him without a word, but she glanced back at Jake once. That glance said everything and nothing at the same time. Later that night, Jake's friend Ben found him in the mess hall staring at his food. "You've got it bad, don't you?" Ben said, sitting down. "Got what?" "Don't play dumb. Everyone can see the way you look at her, and the way she looks at you." Jake sighed. "It doesn't matter. She's a princess. She's engaged. She's from another species. This is impossible." "Since when do humans care about impossible?" Ben asked with a grin, but Jake knew his friend was wrong. Some things were impossible, no matter how much you wished they weren't. The weeks on Kepler 7 station passed quickly, and Jake found himself thinking about Zara constantly. Their daily meetings had become the center of his world, even though he knew it was dangerous to feel this way. She was becoming more than just the alien princess he was assigned to help. She was becoming his friend, and maybe something more. One afternoon, Zara arrived at their usual meeting place looking troubled. Her normally perfect composure seemed cracked around the edges. She sat down heavily, something Jake had never seen her do before. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "My brother Kolvar arrived today," she said quietly. "He brought news from our homeworld. My father has decided to move forward with my marriage to Prince Dralmor. The ceremony will happen in 3 months. Jake felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. 3 months? That soon?" "Yes." Zara looked at him, and he saw something in her eyes he had never seen before. Fear. "Jake, I must confess something to you. I have been having feelings, strong feelings. They frighten me because I was taught such things are wrong, a sign of weakness, but I cannot seem to stop them." "What kind of feelings?" Jake asked, even though part of him already knew. "When I am with you, I feel alive in a way I never have before. When you smile, something warm spreads through my chest. When you explain human concepts, I find myself wanting to understand not just the words, but you. I think about you when I should be focused on diplomatic matters. And the thought of never seeing you again after I marry." She stopped, her voice breaking slightly. "Is this what you called love?" Jake's heart was pounding so hard he could barely think straight. "Zara, please be honest with me," she whispered. "Do you feel anything for me? Or am I alone in this confusion?" Jake closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and looked directly at her. "I've been trying not to feel anything. You're a princess. You're engaged. We're from different worlds. It's impossible. But yes, I feel it too. Every day, more and more. Zara stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. In my culture, what I am feeling would be considered a malfunction, an error to be corrected. But when I watch human entertainment, when I read human stories, I see that you celebrate these feelings. You call them the most important things in life. They are, Jake said, standing beside her. But that doesn't make them easy. I do not know what to do, Zara admitted. My duty is clear. I must marry for the good of my empire, but my heart, this human concept of a heart, it wants something else. Before Jake could respond, the door opened. A Velkari woman entered, one of Zara's attendants named Shira. She looked worried. Princess, your brother is looking for you. He seems angry. Zara straightened her posture, and Jake watched as she put her controlled mask back on. Thank you, Shira. Tell him I will be there shortly. Shira left, but not before giving Jake a sympathetic look. After she was gone, Zara turned to him once more. I should go. But Jake, I want you to know something. Meeting you has changed me. I thought I understood what it meant to be alive, but I was wrong. You showed me colors I did not know existed. She left quickly, and Jake stood alone in the room, his mind racing. What were they going to do? What could they do? That night, Ben found Jake working late in the engineering bay, fixing things that didn't need fixing just to keep his hands busy. You need to talk to her, Ben said bluntly. Really talk to her. Figure out what you both want. It doesn't matter what we want, Jake said, his voice bitter. She's a princess with responsibilities. I'm just a human engineer. This isn't a fairy tale, Ben. There's no happy ending here. Maybe not. But you owe it to both of you to be honest. Hiding from your feelings doesn't make them go away. Trust me, I know. Over the next few days, Jake tried to keep his distance, thinking it would be easier. But Zara still came to their meetings, and neither of them could pretend anymore. They talked about everything and nothing, and the connection between them grew stronger with each conversation. One evening, Zara brought him to a section of the station that had been set aside for the Velkari delegation. I want to show you something from my world, she said. She led him into a room filled with strange instruments, all glowing softly with bioluminescent light. This is our music, she explained. She touched one of the instruments, and sounds filled the air. Mathematical, precise, beautiful, in an alien way. But then Zara did something unexpected. She began to play freely, not following the strict patterns she had been taught. The music changed, becoming less rigid, more emotional. It was still clearly Velkari, but there was something human in it now, too. A wildness that shouldn't have existed. This is what you have done to me, she said as she played. You have taught me to break the patterns, to feel instead of calculate. I do not know if this is good or bad, but I know I cannot go back to who I was before. Jake listened, mesmerized. When she finished, he said, That was incredible. It would be considered incorrect by my people, flawed, but it felt right to me. They stood close together, closer than they probably should have been. Jake could see the silver flecks in her eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from her. Zara, he began, but she put a finger gently against his lips. Do not say anything yet. I am not ready to hear words that will make this more complicated than it already is. The next morning, disaster struck again, but this time it was political. Prince Kolvar made an announcement that shook both delegations. Prince Dralmor would be arriving at the station in 1 week to meet with Zara and finalize their wedding arrangements. Jake heard the news from Captain Rodriguez, who looked at him with sympathy. I'm sorry, Morrison. I know you and the princess have become close. We're just friends, Captain, Jake lied. Sure you are. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. Ambassador Harper is worried. If the Velkari think there's something inappropriate happening between you and the princess, it could damage everything we've worked for. He's asked me to limit your contact with her. Jake felt anger surge through him. She specifically requested me as her liaison. Won't it be worse to suddenly cut that off? Rodriguez sighed. You're right, but be careful, Morrison. I've seen the way you look at her, and I've seen the way she looks at you. Hearts are dangerous things when it comes to diplomacy. That night, Jake couldn't sleep. He walked through the quiet station corridors until he found himself outside the observation deck. To his surprise, Zara was already there, standing at the window and looking at the stars. I thought you might come here, she said without turning around. You humans are predictable in your unpredictability. Couldn't sleep? Velkari do not need much sleep, and I have been thinking too much to rest anyway. She finally looked at him. Dralmor is coming. I heard. I have never defied my father, never broken a rule or questioned my duty. I was raised to be the perfect princess, to put empire before self. She paused, her voice becoming softer. But you have made me want things I should not want. You have made me question everything I was taught. Jake moved to stand beside her. I never meant to make your life harder. I know, but you did. And I think I am grateful for it even though it hurts. She turned to face him fully. Jake Morrison, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. If I were not a princess, if there were no obstacles, would you want to be with me? The way humans are with people they love? Jake looked into her eyes and knew he couldn't lie anymore. Yes, without question, yes. Zara smiled. A real smile that lit up her entire face. Then, very slowly, she reached out and took his hand. It was the first time they had touched beyond accidental brushes, and Jake felt electricity run through him. Then, I will find a way, she said firmly. I do not know how yet, but I will find a way. Because I am learning to be human in the way that matters most. I am learning to choose what my heart wants, not just what logic demands. They stood together, holding hands and looking at the stars, both knowing that the hardest part was still ahead. Prince Dralmor arrived with all the ceremony expected of Velkari royalty. He was tall and imposing, with the same blue-tinted skin as Zara but harder features. His eyes were cold and calculating as he surveyed the station, clearly unimpressed by both the human facility and the humans themselves. Jake watched the arrival ceremony from a distance, standing in the back with other lower-ranking personnel. He saw the way Dralmor greeted Zara, formal and distant. She responded the same way, like they were strangers meeting for a business transaction. Which, Jake supposed, they were. After the ceremony, Jake tried to return to his normal duties, but Ambassador Harper called him to a meeting. Captain Rodriguez was there too, along with Zara's brother, Prince Kolvar. We have a situation, Harper said carefully. Prince Dralmor has become aware of the time Princess Zara has been spending with you, Morrison. He considers it inappropriate. Kolvar spoke up, his voice harsh. My sister's reputation must be protected. The amount of time she spends with a human engineer is causing talk among our people. It must stop immediately. With respect, Prince Kolvar, Jake said, keeping his voice steady. I was assigned to help the princess understand human culture. I've only been doing my job. Your job does not require you to develop personal feelings, Kolvar snapped. Yes, we have noticed. Do you think we are blind? Jake felt his face flush, but he held the prince's gaze. I have treated the princess with nothing but respect. That is not the issue, Harper interjected. The issue is perception. We're at a delicate point in negotiations. We can't afford complications. Jake wanted to argue, but he knew they were right. Not about his feelings being wrong, but about the political danger. He nodded stiffly. I understand. I'll keep my distance. But staying away from Zara was harder than he thought. She still came to their meeting place every day, even though Jake tried to avoid it. After 3 days, she finally cornered him in an empty corridor. Why are you avoiding me? She demanded, her composure slipping. You know why. Your brother made it clear that we're causing problems. I do not care what my brother thinks. But I do, and you should too. This isn't just about us, Zara. It's about the entire future of human-Velkari relations. Zara stepped closer, her eyes blazing with emotions that should not have existed in a Velkari. I am tired of being told what I should care about. I am tired of being a symbol instead of a person. I am tired of everyone deciding my life for me. Zara? No, listen to me. I met with Dralmor today. Do you want to know what we talked about? Resource allocation, trade routes, military alliances? Not once did he ask me about my interests or my thoughts. He sees me as a tool to be used, nothing more. Jake's hands clenched into fists. That's not right. No, it is not, and I will not accept it anymore. She moved even closer, close enough that Jake could see the silver flecks in her eyes. Jake Morrison, I need to ask you something. Why don't you date me? The question hung in the air between them, whispered so softly that Jake almost thought he had imagined it. His heart started hammering in his chest. What? He managed to say. I have learned this human concept. Dating, getting to know someone, spending time together because you want to, not because you have to. Why don't you date me, human? Her voice was vulnerable, stripped of all royal pretense. I know the obstacles. I know how impossible it seems. But I need to know if you would want to, if those obstacles did not exist. Jake stared at her, seeing not a princess, but a person who was scared and brave at the same time. I thought you were beyond my reach, he said quietly. You're royalty. You're engaged. You're from another world. How could I ever dare to think? So it is not that you do not want to. It is that you think you cannot. Yes. Zara reached up and gently touched his face, the first truly intimate gesture she had ever made. I have been studying human emotions because I have been feeling things that Velkari are not supposed to feel, things that confuse and frighten me. But you know what frightens me most? The thought of living my entire life without ever knowing what it means to truly choose someone. To love someone. Jake's heart was racing so fast he thought it might explode. Zara, I love you, she said simply. I did not understand what that meant until recently, but now I do. I love you, Jake Morrison, and I do not know how to stop. Something broke inside Jake at those words. All the walls he had built, all the reasons he had given himself for keeping distance, they all crumbled. He pulled her close and kissed her, and she kissed him back with all the emotion she had been taught to suppress. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Zara looked stunned, her eyes wide. Is that what kissing is supposed to feel like? Jake laughed despite himself. Yes. Did your research not cover that? Reading about it and experiencing it are very different things. She touched her lips, wonder in her expression. I understand now why humans value this. It is like all the feelings inside you suddenly have a voice. They stood there in the corridor, holding each other, knowing that what they had just done changed everything. And they were right. News of their relationship spread quickly through the station. Jake didn't know how people found out, whether someone saw them or whether it was simply too obvious to hide anymore. Within hours, he was called before Ambassador Harper again. Morrison, what have you done? Harper looked more tired than angry. I fell in love, sir. I didn't plan it. I didn't want the complications. But it happened. Prince Dralmor is demanding satisfaction. He's challenged you to a Velkari honor duel. Jake felt his blood run cold. A duel? With weapons? It can be lethal, yes. Their customs allow it when someone dishonors an engagement. Harper leaned forward. You need to understand something, Morrison. If you refuse, It will be seen as cowardice. It could destroy everything we've built with the Velkhari. But if you accept, you could die. Dralmor is a trained warrior. You're an engineer. Does Zara know about this? She's meeting with her father's hologram now. The Emperor himself has gotten involved. Jake stood up. I'll accept the challenge. Morrison, think about this. I have, sir. I love her. If there's even a chance that this could work out, I have to try. That's what humans do, isn't it? We fight for what we love, even when the odds are against us. Captain Rodriguez, who had been silent until now, spoke up. I'm putting you in contact with Alex Ward, our combat specialist. He can at least teach you the basics before the duel. It's not much, but it's something. Over the next 2 days, Jake trained intensively. Alex taught him how to fight, how to defend, how to look for weaknesses, but they both knew it probably wouldn't be enough. You're not going to beat him with strength or skill, Alex said bluntly. Your only chance is to be unpredictable. Do things he doesn't expect. Use your human instincts. The night before the duel, Zara came to Jake's quarters. She looked different, harder somehow, like she had made a decision. I spoke with my father, she said. I told him everything. I told him that I will not marry without love. I told him that humans have taught me what it means to truly live, not just exist. What did he say? He was angry, confused. He said I have been corrupted by human weakness. But I told him that what he calls weakness, I call strength. The strength to choose, the strength to love, the strength to fight for what matters. She sat beside him, taking his hand. Tomorrow you will face Dralmor. I am terrified, Jake. I cannot lose you. You won't, he promised, even though he had no idea if he could keep that promise. I'm going to fight with everything I have. Not just for me, but for us. For the chance that we might have a future together. Zara leaned her head against his shoulder. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that you have changed my life. You have shown me what it means to be truly alive. They sat together through the night, holding each other, both preparing for what tomorrow would bring. The arena was set up in the largest cargo bay of the Velkhari flagship. Jake stood at one end, wearing simple combat gear that Alex had provided. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. Across from him, Prince Dralmor stood in traditional Velkhari combat armor, looking confident and deadly. The bay was packed with people from both species. Jake could see Ambassador Harper looking worried, Captain Rodriguez standing with her arms crossed, and Ben giving him an encouraging nod. The Velkhari delegation watched with cool interest, seeing this as a simple matter of honor. But Jake's eyes found Zara, standing beside her brother Kolvar. She looked terrified, her usual composure completely gone. Their eyes met, and Jake tried to give her a reassuring smile. He wasn't sure if it worked. Commander Vexnar stepped into the center of the arena. This is a formal challenge of honor under Velkhari law. The combat will continue until one fighter yields, is unable to continue, or dies. There are no other rules. Begin when ready. Jake took a deep breath. Alex's words echoed in his mind. Be unpredictable. Use human instincts. Don't try to beat him at his own game. Dralmor moved first, crossing the distance between them with frightening speed. He was faster and stronger than Jake had expected. Jake barely dodged the first strike, feeling the air move as Dralmor's fist passed inches from his face. The next few minutes were a blur of dodging and blocking. Jake couldn't match Dralmor's strength or speed, so he focused on staying alive and watching for patterns. The Velkhari prince fought with perfect technique, each move flowing into the next like a dance. And that was his weakness, Jake realized. It was too perfect, too predictable. Dralmor followed the forms he had been taught exactly, never deviating from the proper way to fight. Jake started fighting dirty. He feinted left and went right. He ducked when he should have blocked. He rolled away instead of standing his ground. Every move was wrong by Velkhari standards, and it confused Dralmor just enough to keep Jake in the fight. But confusion wasn't enough to win. Jake was getting tired, and Dralmor was barely breathing hard. A solid hit caught Jake in the ribs, sending him sprawling across the floor. Pain exploded through his chest. Dralmor stood over him, preparing to deliver a finishing blow. "You fought well for a human, but this is over." Jake looked up at the prince, at his cold eyes and perfect stance. And suddenly he understood what he needed to do. He didn't need to beat Dralmor. He needed to show everyone watching what made humans different. "Wait," Jake said, struggling to his feet. He was hurt and exhausted, but he stood as straight as he could. "I yield." A murmur ran through the crowd. Dralmor looked surprised. "You surrender?" "No. I yield because this fight was wrong from the beginning. You're a trained warrior. I'm an engineer. This was never going to be a fair fight." Jake turned to address everyone in the arena, human and Velkhari alike. "But I'm not going to kill or be killed over love. That's not what love is about." He looked directly at Dralmor. "You see Zara as a prize to be won, a piece in a political game. But she's not. She's a person with her own thoughts, feelings, and dreams. She deserves to choose her own path, not have it chosen for her." "That is not our way," Dralmor said coldly. "Maybe it should be," Jake replied. He was speaking to the whole room now, but especially to the Velkhari. "You've built an amazing civilization on logic and control, but you've lost something important. You've lost the ability to feel deeply, to connect truly, to choose freely." He gestured to Zara. "She's been learning about human emotions, and it's made her more, not less. She's stronger because she allows herself to feel. She's braver because she's willing to fight for what she wants. She's not broken or corrupted. She's evolved." Emperor Thonzar's hologram suddenly appeared in the arena, massive and imposing. His voice echoed through the bay. "You dare to lecture us about our own princess, human?" Jake felt fear, but he pushed it down. "With respect, your majesty, yes, because I love her, and love gives me that right. Not because I think I own her, but because I want her to be happy, even if that happiness doesn't include me." He turned back to Zara. "If you want to marry Dralmor because it's your duty, I'll accept that. If you want to return to Velkhar and live the life you were born to live, I'll support that. But if you want to choose something different, if you want to explore what it means to make your own decisions, then I'll fight for that right with everything I have, not with violence, but with the truth." The arena was silent. Then a voice spoke up from the Velkhari side of the crowd. An old Velkhari woman stepped forward, her robes marked with symbols that indicated high rank. "I am High Priestess Varalin," she said in a voice that commanded attention. "I am old enough to remember the ancient texts, the ones we no longer teach. There was a time, thousands of years ago, when our people felt as deeply as humans do now. We called it the time of passion." Murmurs of surprise ran through the Velkhari delegation. "It was a time of great creativity and discovery," Varalin continued. "But it was also a time of chaos and conflict. Our ancestors chose to suppress emotion, to value logic above all else. It brought us stability and prosperity." She walked slowly toward the center of the arena. "But I wonder if we did not lose something precious in that choice. This human speaks of things we have forgotten. Choice, passion, connection. Perhaps it is time we remembered." Emperor Thonzar's hologram flickered. "You speak of dangerous things, Varalin. I speak of truth, my emperor. Look at your daughter. She has been transformed by human influence. But has she become weak? Or has she become stronger in ways we have forgotten how to measure?" All eyes turned to Zara. She stood silent for a long moment, then stepped forward into the arena. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "I love Jake Morrison," she said simply. "I did not choose to feel this. It simply happened. But I do choose to acknowledge it. I choose to honor it. I choose to fight for it, even if it means defying every tradition I was raised with." She looked at her father's hologram. "You taught me to serve the Empire above all else. But what kind of empire are we if we cannot allow our people to grow, to change, to feel? Humans have shown me that emotion is not weakness. It is strength. It is what drives them to achieve impossible things." Zara moved to stand beside Jake. "I will not marry Drallmore. I will not accept a life without choice, and if that means I am no longer worthy of being your daughter, then I accept that consequence." The Emperor stared at his daughter for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled slightly. "You sound like your mother when she was young, before the conditioning fully took hold. She was passionate once, your mother. I had almost forgotten." He was quiet for another moment, thinking. Perhaps the human is right. Perhaps we have lost something important. "I will not force you to marry, Zarathiel, but you must understand that this choice has consequences. Our alliance with the Kethral Empire—" "May I speak, Your Majesty?" Drallmore interrupted. Everyone turned to look at him in surprise. "I did not want this marriage either. I accepted it as my duty, but I have no love for the princess. Truth be told, I find the concept of love baffling." He bowed slightly to Zara. "I withdraw my claim. Let it be known that I yielded, not the human. He showed me something today. He showed me that humans care more about their values than their pride. Perhaps that is worth more than victory." Ambassador Harper stepped forward quickly. "Your Majesty, if I may, there might be another way to secure the alliance you seek. Not through marriage, but through genuine cooperation. We could establish joint research facilities, cultural exchange programs, shared trade routes, an alliance built on mutual benefit and respect rather than obligation." The Emperor considered this. "An interesting proposal. It seems humans have many interesting ideas." He looked at his daughter again. "Very well. Zarathiel, you may make your own choice. But know this, if you choose this human, you will be forging a new path. You will face challenges unlike any Velkari has faced before." "I know, Father," Zara said softly, "but I am ready." The negotiations continued for weeks after that day, but they were different now. More open, more honest. Both species began to learn from each other in ways that went beyond simple technology exchange. Jake and Zara continued to spend time together, but now openly, without hiding. They taught each other about their respective cultures, and slowly, they found a way to bridge the gap between their worlds. 3 months later, Jake stood in a small park on Earth, watching autumn leaves fall from trees. Zara stood beside him, holding his hand and smiling in wonder. "It is beautiful," she said, "the way the leaves change color before they fall. There is a poetry to it." "Yeah," Jake agreed. "We call it the cycle of life. Things end so that new things can begin." They walked together through the park, just another couple enjoying the day. But they were more than that. They were proof that different worlds could come together, that love could bridge any gap, that choosing with your heart was never a weakness. Zara had chosen to spend time on Earth, learning about humanity firsthand. She had also become an ambassador of sorts, teaching the Velkari about emotions and helping her people rediscover what they had lost. As they walked, they came upon Jake's family home. His mother and father were waiting on the porch, smiling warmly. They had been nervous about meeting an alien princess at first, but Zara's genuine warmth and curiosity had won them over immediately. "Come on," Jake said, squeezing Zara's hand. "My mom made apple pie. You're going to love it." As they walked toward the house, Zara looked at Jake with eyes full of happiness. "Thank you," she said softly. For what? For teaching me what it means to choose. For showing me that logic and emotion do not have to be enemies. For loving me when I did not even know how to love myself. Jake stopped and pulled her close. Thank you for taking a chance on a human engineer who had no idea what he was doing. They kissed under the autumn sky, two people from different worlds who had found each other against all odds. And in that moment, they both knew that this was just the beginning of their story. Behind them, watching from the porch, Jake's mother wiped away a happy tear. "That's our boy," she said to her husband. "Always bringing home strays." Jake's father laughed. "This one's a keeper, though." And they were right, because love, real love, was worth fighting for. It was worth changing for. It was worth choosing again and again, every single day. That was the human way. And now, it was Zara's way too.